Hari Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let's see with what we started our Bhakti Life program. Let's remind ourselves what was the meaning of the words Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. Who want to say what is the meaning of Sambandha? Relationship, yes. Relationship between
associates or one with God.
Yes, relationship between God and the soul. And the world, the energies of God. Knowledge about relationship between God, soul, and the energies of God, the world as we know it. Yes, this is Sambandha and Abhideya. Hare Krishna.
It's the practice.
It's the practice, correct. And if we have this knowledge and perform this practice, we will be able to achieve Prayojana, which is
the ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal, correct. Yes. So basically this is a very easy way to perceive systematically the whole spiritual knowledge of the Vedas. So can you close the door? Maybe not completely, but just... Okay, thank you very much. And then next time, previous time we were speaking about different ways to receive knowledge, to gather knowledge. And we said there are mainly three ways: Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda. So you tell me now, what is what? What is Pratyaksha?
Pratyaksha is through in front of you, through live in front of you, through your senses.
Perception.
Correct, sense perception.
Which is imperfect.
Which is imperfect, okay. And Anumana?
Imagination.
Imagination, okay. Hallucination.
Logic.
Logic, yes. Anumana means following the mind, following the thoughts of the mind. Okay? And the third way to get knowledge is Shabda, which means
vocal energy. Vocal energy.
Spiritual sound.
Perfect.
Authoritative,
Testimony.
spiritual sound. Okay?
May I just read a little bit?
Yeah.
That is Sabda is when God manifests as sound and the word, and when knowledge is given through the scriptures.
Okay. Yes, also. The God, we can say, the God, He manifests in sound. This is how the Bible starts, yes? And because this sound or this knowledge is coming from the absolute source, God, it's perfect. And if it is transmitted through a perfect chain of perfect personalities, it can come to us perfect knowledge. Do you remember the example that we were giving?
As a mango.
Correct, mango.
I don't think it's a good example. Because when the mango goes down, because everyone will eat, because it's, it's mango, it's a God with scriptures, word, and sound, right? And everyone, it's look like, remember that telephone game? So it's kind of because everyone is interpreting. And when the less things you have in between you and memory, right? So I think that's better. I mean,
So you're saying that if we can directly take the knowledge from God, it will be better.
no. But we cannot. I cannot learn math by myself. I
Yes.
need to go to school, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
this kind of thing, that is school, scholarship.
So this example was showing that if you have something so delicate as a ripened mango, you have to be very careful how you deal with it. And in the same way, knowledge is something very, very, very delicate thing. Like if you make a small mistake in the knowledge, this can cost big damage to many, many, many living entities. So knowledge, we have to deal with the knowledge in a very careful way. And if this knowledge is transmitted from a person to the next person without any change, then we have a proof that the knowledge is still perfect. If every person who is getting the knowledge decides on his own accord what he likes from this knowledge or what he doesn't like, and in this way takes out from the knowledge or adds something from himself, then we may have a problem because the knowledge is changing. That's the idea of the example. Of course, every example is limited, but the examples or analogies, they are meant to help us to understand something that maybe is difficult to understand otherwise. So when we give example brings us closer to the reality to be able to understand.
So probably we have got that knowledge from that person who already has an experience to deal with that. So he sees, I mean, that is like a guru or something, right?
Guru,
So,
yes.
Yeah, like a teacher.
We'll
or
speak
something.
about this. We have this
Oh,
question.
no, I'm not pushing.
Oh, we have the question from the previous time about the authorities. Yes? We are going to speak about it.
An example of Shabda is mango.
An example of Shabda is not mango, but the example is sweet mango, and the idea is that, like we were discussing, that knowledge that is coming from our senses is imperfect because our senses are imperfect. We are going to speak today more about this. And then our thoughts and our logic is also imperfect because we think on the basis of the information that we gather with our imperfect senses. So in this way the logic itself may be perfect, but because it's built on something which is imperfect, it doesn't work properly. Like today we went to New Jersey with one devotee here. We were making one small presentation for some students there. So in the presentation there was a very nice example. One scientist, I don't remember his name, but he's explaining that nowadays the science has very good instruments to work with, like we have all these telescopes and microscopes, so we can perceive the reality in a much better way than before, because these instruments, they give much bigger opportunity for our senses to perceive reality. But he was making the point, this scientist was making the point, still our senses are very limited. So although we are using these quite good instruments, because of the imperfection of our senses, it's not sure if we are perceiving the reality in a proper way. So the first way
The
to...
analogy of the mango is that it comes from God to the human.
Yes, and then these are the two first way to gather knowledge, and the third way is Shabda, which means authoritative revelation. Someone just comes and gives you the knowledge.
So it's from oral, person to person.
Yes. And then if the person is perfect and is giving you perfect knowledge, then you can be sure that your knowledge is perfect. If it's imperfect personality, still your knowledge won't be perfect. But if we accept that the beginning of all transcendental or spiritual knowledge is God Himself, like generally all the spiritual traditions, they are based on a holy book, yes? The Bible, Quran, Talmud, Bhagavad Gita. So the idea is that initially the spiritual knowledge comes from God, and because He is perfect, we know that spiritual knowledge comes from perfect source. Now, if it's transmitted, because we don't have direct connection with God, if it's transmitted through a chain of perfect personalities, and they don't change it, then knowledge comes to us as it is perfect. So in the same way, if we have a tree, and on the top of the tree there is very nice mango, and one person goes to the top, if he just throws the mango from the top down, the mango may be damaged, yes? But if there is a chain of people which are on the tree, and they just hang the mango from a hand to hand,
The group of people.
yes.
Right.
This
Just
is
like
how
they-
the...
So
Just
it's
like
not
they do avocados. When
Yes,
they
correct.
take the avocados, they just don't throw it, they just pass it along.
And
This-
so it's not our direct connection to the information. It's not an intimate relationship that we, because that would be the former two that are imperfect.
It's connection through a chain of perfect personalities with the perfect source, and in this way we get the perfect knowledge. So
You're
let's...
not accepting at all direct relationship with God?
Yes, we have direct relationship, but it's direct and it's not direct at the same time. Why? Because to have a direct relationship with God, of course God is in our heart, and God is in our heart, and if He's in our heart, that means we can have a direct relationship with Him. But we should become pure enough so that we can have this relationship with God. If we don't have it, then it is very, very difficult. And basically, first we have to prove ourselves to God in order that He wants to associate directly with us. And what is the system? In not only in the Vedic spirituality, but also basically all the spiritual systems. What is the system to prove yourself that you are serious? Well, first you have to go and you have to serve someone who is very dear to God. Some servant of God who is very dear, like in our tradition we call it Guru. And when submissively you serve him, you try to satisfy him, then God will give you His personal association. So basically there is a system how to do it, and this everywhere, like let's say in Orthodox Christianity, you have always, if you go in a monastery, you choose some of the old monks, and you have to serve him for a long time, and he's teaching you how to advance spiritually. And then, with the time when your spirituality matures, then you can have a direct connection with God. Like, we don't have a problem associating directly with God, but at the same time, in order this to be real, first...
I see the difference. My relationship with God or God's relationship with me. So that is kind of, He covers, right? So I pretend I have a relationship with God, right? I don't need a teacher. I pretend, right? But God has His own relationship with us. So it's not the same things, right? You got it? No? I pretend I'm just like, oh my God, I don't need teachers.
Yeah.
I have just God. I have the books, it's enough for me. But it's not the same way as God has relationship with me. Because maybe, like I just, my imagination starts to work, right?
Yes, correct. Exactly.
We have seen that we are dependent on external resources, like whether it's vocal energy or wordings or listening the knowledge from external sources. But is there any way that we can just find out the God in ourselves without depending on any other resource which is an external world? In short, like we know that we need to make a guru, like in a very clear term.
Yes.
Who should give us the clear message. But instead of that, is it possible that we can do it ourselves by our own without depending on any other sources, number one. Number two, we can do it by only make completeness in our own senses. As you said, the senses are not completed. So that's how we can depend it by our own, and we can make this journey by our own and get our things to be done that we receive God by our own without depending on any other external link. So my query is like in a clear term that is we know that I've been with this movement that we know that we need a guru for sure. But sometimes we are in a situation where we are not able to get a direct connection with our guru, or there is some communication channel that we are not able to receive the message directly. So is there any way that we can just develop something by our own and we can just get direction by our own without depending on any external thing? And just a small thing with that. How we can make our sense complete? I know we have limitation of our materialistic bodily senses, but I have seen in other resources or the way of doing this journey or spiritual search, like in terms of yoga, many people they develop their inner senses. Like some of the people who are very hidden, or they are doing like they're very good and in another word like mystic power or getting supernatural sources, that they are just getting interconnected and make it happen.
Yeah.
So can we do it like that, or this is the only way?
No, we cannot. Without in the spiritual world where it's got like you are rushing a little bit ahead, because that's why we are doing this course, and it's a long course, it's 4 months course, and we are going to go through all these topics. We are going to speak them, but because now you are asking, I'll just say something fast. The idea is God has a system, and if you follow the system, you are successful. If you don't follow the system, you are not successful. And this works in every field of our life. It doesn't matter if it's spiritual life or if material life. Like for example, if you're a businessman and you want to make a business, there is a business laws which you have to follow. And if you don't follow them, it's not possible to be successful. You may say, but isn't it like it may have some like exception from the case, general case? No. There is no. There is a law, and if you follow the law, you are successful. If you don't follow, you are not successful. For example, you have a business and the client is coming inside, and you deal with him very nicely, very politely, you respect him, your business will go very well. And if you don't care about the clients, you are rude with them, you don't care about them, you are not trying to see what they want and try to help them to find what they want, your business will go down. It's a law. And in the same time, in the same way, spiritual life is also a law. There is a rules. It's not like some people, they think, well, for the material life I have to be very precise, like how I give education to my kids, it's very precise. How I take care of my wife, it's very precise. How I deal with my boss is very precise. But when it comes in the connection with God, everything becomes very vague. It's not like that. The same way, there are very particular laws, and that's why we are going through this course to see these laws. That's why we said we are going to speak about philosophy, and we are going to speak about theology. It's a science, the science of God. Who is God? Who are we? What is the process to connect with God? These things, now we are going to learn them. So, in order to accommodate different kinds of opinion, yes, we can say this. We can say, yeah, it's possible like that, it's possible like that. And theoretically, it's possible. Theoretically, God chooses what to do and how to do it. So, because He's, completely independent, He can do whatever He likes. He can just now enter this room and say, hey, I like you guys, I'll give you one blessing, you're going to the spiritual world. No problem for God to do it. Still, not by chance, He is giving a system. And what is the system of God? The system of God is described in the holy books, like the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, the Bible. So those people who are serious, they have to follow this system. And if they follow the system, they will be successful. That's the idea.
Just to reiterate, what you asked, not what you were talking about. I could hold it.
Okay. Thank you.
Through the disciplines of attaining knowledge, which is to know God, there's imperfect methods and perfect methods. The imperfect methods are done by ourselves, which can be manipulated by the mind or the senses.
Correct. Now we are going to speak more about this. And perfect knowledge is, knowledge comes from God.
Through someone else, through action.
Through perfect personalities.
Through perfect personalities, but serving the perfect personality.
Yes, we have to
This
do something
action
to
is-
get the knowledge. Correct. So, some examples, just to give a little bit more light on this point. The size of the sun. Through our imperfect senses, it looks like the sun is very small, like a coin. But actually, we know sun is huge. Or, like for example, how we are gathering so much knowledge about different things which are going on around the world. Let's say we switch on the radio or the TV, and someone is saying something. And because we know his authority, we accept that his authority. That's why we accept the knowledge that he is giving as a real knowledge. We don't know if it's like that. We don't know. But we accept it. So this way of getting knowledge works practically in our day-to-day life. About the Vedas, the Vedic authority, and here we are going to speak about our topic about authority. So let's first say something about the Vedas. The Vedas are like instruction manual, what is material world and how to deal with it. So basically everything that we buy, we know we should have a manual inside, yes? And in the same way, when God creates the universe, He gives a manual, and this manual are the Vedas. There we can find all kinds of knowledge, both material, how to deal with matter, how to deal with this world, and also spiritual, how we can get perfect knowledge, how we can become spiritually perfect and go back to the spiritual world. Place which is more perfect than this material world. So, here we have a nice example that if we have a painting, different people, they can look at the painting and they can express what's their opinion, what is on the painting, and what the author wanted to say. But actually, who is the person who really knows what is on the painting? Okay, that's an opinion of a painter. Well, generally, the artist, yes, he can say in the best way what is on the painting, because when he was drawing it, he had something in his mind. So in the same way, what is this world? The best person to tell us is the creator of the world, God. And where he's putting this knowledge? In the Vedas, in the scriptures. So now we are going to mention about these two kinds of receiving knowledge. One is ascending and one is descending. Like to try to get understanding, knowledge about the world, about what is the goal of life and so on and so on. Through our senses and through our mind, this is ascending process. And it works in certain cases, but it may take very, very long time. Like in Bhagavad Gita, there is one verse which is saying, Bahunam janma namante jnanavan mam prapadyante. Someone who is jnanavan, who is trying through the process of knowledge, through the process of mental speculation to understand me, Krishna is saying, Bahunam janmanam ante. Generally, it will take him many, many lifetimes. It is possible, but it will take a very long practice. And at the end, Krishna is saying again, he'll come to the same conclusion. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that I'm everything. But it will take a long time. And the other process, through spiritual sound vibration, through the knowledge in the Vedas, it's called deductive knowledge or descending knowledge. It comes down. You just hear it and you try to understand it. You don't accept it blindly. Still you use your senses, still you use your mind, but you don't use them to understand if this is right or wrong. You use them to understand how what you just learned is right and it's correct. There is a difference between the two. Yes? In both cases we use our intelligence, we use our mind, but in one case we use it to basically we accept ourselves as the main authority and that we have the right to decide if something is correct or is not correct, if it's right or wrong. And in the other case, we are again using our intelligence, our mind, but we are using it not if this is right or wrong, how it is right. Okay, Vedas are saying something I don't understand, so let me try to use my intelligence to understand how. And then we go to personalities who know more than us, and then we ask them submissively, and we get knowledge from them. This is how the descending method is working. You want more terms, Sanskrit terms, or without terms? Okay, let's just keep these ones. These are not important. So we can experiment and come to the same conclusion that the Vedas are giving us, but it will take longer. That's why accepting authority will save us time. This is the idea. The Vedic knowledge is described as apa urusheya. Apa urusheya. Purusha means, what is the meaning of Purusha? Man. Yes. A Purusha means not man. It's knowledge which is not coming from ordinary person. This is something very important for the Vedic knowledge. Like all the knowledge which is coming from an ordinary person, we'll hear now there is 4 defects. But the Vedic knowledge is free from these 4 defects. Vedic knowledge should be accepted as axiomatic knowledge. What means axiomatic? Like in the mathematics or some of the other sciences, you have certain rule that is the beginning of your way of thinking. And you don't question it because it's beyond logic, like you cannot figure it out with your logic. Our mind is too limited to figure it out through logic. So you just accept, okay, if we accept that this is so, axiom, if we accept this is so, then we come to this and this and this conclusion. Exists in the science also. So Vedic knowledge is accepted as axiomatic. It is so. But why it is so, we don't accept it blindly. We try to think, we try to speak, we try to discuss and come to logical understanding why actually it is so. So the knowledge which is coming not from Shabda or not from Vedic scriptures or some other scriptures given by God has 4 defects. Let's see now who are these 4 defects. First one, imperfect senses. Our senses are imperfect. We'll skip again the Sanskrit just to make it easy. If someone with imperfect senses tries to give knowledge, but he doesn't have perfect knowledge, he comes under the influence of illusion. Let me just finish this one. You remember your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
For this topic, yeah.
Okay. just to finish this.
Yeah.
So if we have imperfect senses and try to gather real knowledge, we will come under illusion. We will not see the things as they are. Illusion means you accept something for something else that it is not. This is the definition for illusion. The most classical example which is given is someone walks on the path, on the road, and he sees a rope. But first moment, because his senses are imperfect, he immediately thinks it's a snake. It's not a snake, it's a rope. But because of your senses, you perceive it as a snake. It's illusion. And then, if we are under illusion, we will make mistakes. When you don't see the reality as it is, you make mistakes. You're making mistakes. And then, if we get knowledge with our imperfect senses and we are in illusion and we make mistakes and we try to teach others, we are cheating. We are cheating because we are pretending we are giving knowledge, but actually we don't have knowledge.
But we don't know we don't have knowledge. That's why we have a lot of false teachers, because like
Correct.
I got something, I'm right, so
Correct.
you have to do the same
Yes.
things as I.
That's right.
It's the part to find.
Exactly. So these are the 4 defects that every living entity which is conditioned has. Condition means your consciousness is influenced by material conditions. If your consciousness is influenced by material conditions, you are a conditioned living entity and you have these four defects. So that's why if someone in this material world is pretending that on his own he can have perfect knowledge, we can call him. Yes.
What were the 4 defects?
Imperfect senses. We are under illusion because we don't have real knowledge. That's why we can make mistakes. And if we are under illusion, we make mistakes, but we try to give knowledge to others, we are cheating. These four defects. And there is 2 nice examples in this connection. One is, for example, you are walking on a big path, very wide path, and somewhere on this path you lost your keys. And then going ahead you realize that somewhere you lost your keys, but you don't have, like it's dark, it's night, and you don't have any way how to see where are your keys. So you are going to look for them where there is light, under the street light. So your keys, they can be everywhere around, but because the only place where you can see is under the light, you go to look for them there. So in the same way, sometimes we are trying to understand what is the universe, what are the universal laws, how the things are working. But because our senses are extremely, what is the word? Narrow, exactly. Very narrow. We are trying to look for the reality in a very small, tiny place. That's one example which is given. Other example is very nice story. It's a Vedic story. It's the story of 5 blind people. You know this story?
Yeah.
Huh? Yes. 5 blind people, and they brought in front of them one elephant, and they told them, so this is elephant. Now you have to tell us what elephant is. And these people immediately they went, and they caught a different part of the elephant. Like one of them caught the tail, of the elephant. And he thought, oh, elephant, this is a very thick rope. This is what elephant is. The other one caught the horn of the elephant and said, elephant, I think elephant is something like a big cow, because he has a horn, so should be something like a cow. Then the other one got the leg of the elephant and said, oh, elephant, this is a very big tree, very strong big tree. And then the other one caught the ear of the elephant. Said, oh, elephant is some kind of bird, because he has wings. He's moving his wings. That means he's some kind of bird. And then the last one, he got the trunk of the elephant. He said, oh, elephant is something like a big snake, very strong snake. So in this way, all of them, they were perceiving the reality in completely different way. And then the story goes, what is the real way so that they can understand what the elephant is? Someone has to come that knows what is elephant, and he just have to tell them, this is what elephant is. Then they can know the truth. Otherwise, with their limited sense perception, they will see reality, but very small angle from the reality. And they will think, this is the reality. That's why there are so much fighting what actually the reality is between the religious people, between the different countries, between the different nations. Why? Because everyone perceives one small part of the reality and thinks, the way how I see the things, this is the right way to see the things. And the other one, from the other side of the fence, he thinks, no, actually how I perceive the things, this is the real way. And then at some point there is argument, there is clash, there is fighting. That's one reason.
Elephant and 5 blind men, so that's I wish that's how I
Okay,
yeah, so that's
great. So now let's speak a little bit about authority. We came to this question. It's a very important question. We are going to speak again separately about this, about Guru, but let's speak a little bit now. What is the qualification that someone accepts transcendental, spiritual, perfect knowledge and he gives it after that to the next person without changing it? What is the qualification? Well, from Vedic books we learn few qualifications are needed. First, very important qualification is he has to be able to control his senses. Such a person should be able to control his senses. Why? Because he should be able to be free from dualities like attachment or hate, fear, or just to want to enjoy his senses selfishly. Why? Because all these things, they can distort our perceiving of the reality. For example, if you are very attached to something or to someone, you tend to see the reality in a certain way. Or if you hate very much someone, you tend to see the reality in a certain way. Or if you are very attached to enjoy your senses in a certain way, you tend to present the reality in such a way that you can achieve your goal. So someone who is proper representative of God, he should be able to control his senses very, very well, so that he does not misuse others for the satisfaction of his senses. That's very important qualification. Then next important qualification, Srila Prabhupada is saying, such a person, he is never saying, I am God. He is always saying, I am servant of God, and if you like, I can teach you also how to become servant of God. He is never saying, I am God. Basically, such a person, he is not trying to show off himself. He is not trying to show that he is the most important, that he is the center of attention. No, rather he is always in a subordinate position. He is servant. He servant. Like one time in one lecture in India, big pandal, like thousands of people. And Srila Prabhupada was giving a talk, and he was speaking about the Varnas and Ashramas, the Vedic social system. And he was explaining first class people, the Brahmanas, the teachers of the society, everybody should listen to them and respect them. Then second class people, third class, fourth class. And then at the end of the lecture, some young boy, very puffed up, came up and said, "So Swamiji, you are speaking so much about these first, second, third class people. Then which class are you?" Basically, he provoked him. And then Srila Prabhupada, he didn't say anything. He just put his head down. But actually, his disciples, which were very close to him, they are saying that he said something. But only they could hear. People, they couldn't hear. And what he said was, actually, I'm none of those. I'm fifth class. I'm just servant of everybody else. So this is the mood of the real spiritual master. He is not living to show off himself. He is living to help others. He is living to see others happy.
He doesn't have his agenda, right?
He doesn't have his agenda. The real spiritual master, he doesn't have his agenda. He is living for everybody else. There is such a Vedic aphorism, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The real spiritual master, whole world is his family. He's not dividing people. "Oh, I like you. You're from my people. Come here. I don't like you. I don't want to see you anymore." No, he doesn't deal like that with the people. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The whole world is his family. He deals with everybody in the same way. This is his qualification. And then the other very important quality is, because we are speaking about disciplic succession, so someone cannot become a guru unless he is 100% dedicated to satisfying the desires of his guru. What makes you qualified to be guru is you have to totally surrender to your guru, to try to fulfill the desires, the orders of your guru. Like Srila Prabhupada, we are seeing he became so famous, he achieved so much, he opened so many centers, he managed to change the lives of so many people. But actually when he speaks about himself, what is he saying? He is saying, "I don't have any qualification. I don't have any qualification. If I have any qualification, is that I just try to fulfill the desire of my Guru Maharaj, the order of my Guru Maharaj." To such an extent that sometimes he is saying, "I follow my Guru Maharaj blindly." Like we were saying, we shouldn't follow blindly. But he is saying blindly. Why blindly? Because he has 100% faith in the words of his spiritual master. Whatever his spiritual master is saying, this is the essence of his life and the essence of his soul, to try to satisfy his spiritual master. This is the qualification of the disciple, and the disciple, he will become the future representative of the disciplic succession. This is how the Guru Parampara works, this disciplic succession works. And apart from that, we can see other qualifications of the spiritual master. But there, we could say, actually there is one also very important other qualification. The spiritual master should be situated in transcendental knowledge. He should know very well the scriptures, and he should be able, everything that he says, he should be able to prove it with clause from the scriptures. That he is not speaking just, "Well, I feel I have to say this and this and this." No, whatever he is saying, it should be always supported by Shastra or by the words of God. Then he is authoritative, he is bona fide. And then few extra things we can mention is, spiritual master, he should be always happy. This is the qualification of the spiritual master. He should be happy. Sometimes externally he may not look like, he may look serious, grave. But actually when we see how he is acting, he should be always enthusiastic, always happy. Like one time devotees, they went to Srila Prabhupada and they asked him, "Srila Prabhupada, are you happy?" Because generally Srila Prabhupada was looking very serious and grave. And he looked at this devotee and he said, "Are you really want to know?" Devotee said, "Yeah." "Are you happy?" Srila Prabhupada looked at him again. "Do you really want to know?" And he was already thinking, "Oh my God, did I do something wrong or like what's the problem?" And then third time he asked Srila Prabhupada, "Srila Prabhupada, are you happy?" And then Srila Prabhupada said again, "Are you really want to know?" And then the disciple said, "Yes, I want to know." And then Srila Prabhupada smiled like very widely. He said, "Yes." So this is something very important. And then other practical thing is when we are looking for authority, for a representative, we should also see if our relationship is working nicely. It means we should feel that we feel this person close to us, we can reveal our heart, we can reveal our problems to him, and the advices that he is giving to us, they are relevant for our life, for our situation. Like for example, when we are choosing a guru and we speak with few candidates for gurus, we should see what kind of instructions they will give us and if we can follow that. It's something like sometimes is given the example with a shoe, pair of shoes. You go to a spiritual master and he gives you a pair of shoes and you have to check out, can you walk with these shoes? Maybe they will be too tight for you. So then you have to see, you can speak with him and he may say, "Yes, sure, no problem, I'll give you another 2 sizes bigger." Or he may say, "No, this is my standard. I want my disciple to have this attitude." And then you have to see, maybe you have to approach other personality. Of course, he should have all the previous things that we spoke already. So these are some extra things that we can see when we are choosing the guru. Something more about this topic? Someone want to say? Everything is clear.
But you have to spend some time with him.
It's good to spend some time with him. Yes, actually Shastri is saying that the guru should test the disciple and the disciple also should test the guru. The disciple should test the guru if the guru is bona fide guru. What means test? Exactly what you're saying. Disciple should spend some time with the guru and should watch him, look at him. What is he doing? When is he getting up? What is he eating? How he is relating with people? If he is controlling his senses, if he is dedicated to his Guru Maharaj, all these things. It's not wrong to do this. Then after you test the spiritual master, it is said, they may test each other for 1 year or so. After you test him and you decide that you accept this person as your authority, as your guru in the spiritual path, on the spiritual path, then you cannot doubt him anymore. The doubts are when there is a period of testing. Once you decide, okay, this is my guru, you cannot doubt anymore in whatever he says. This is the etiquette. So yes, it's very good if the disciple can spend some time with the guru. Generally it's possible. Now it's a little bit more difficult with this situation, but generally it is possible. Okay, so let's move. So we spoke what we are going to learn, and then we spoke what are the ways to learn it, that there are different ways to get knowledge. So now let's get to the essence. We start speaking about Sambandha, or let's try to understand who is God, what is the soul, what is the material nature, what are the different energies of God, And what is the connection between them? Now we are going to discuss all these things one after the other. So first topic is we are not the material body. We are not this body. The Transcendentalist is constantly endeavoring to realize himself as a spiritual soul, different from any of the temporary bodily designations which we so strongly identify ourselves. You are eternal spirit. You are never born and you will never die. This is the first point Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Understanding this is the first step in spiritual life. So, we are identifying ourselves with many things, yes? We have so many material designations, and they are all connected with our body, yes. So, for example, if I ask Jimmy, are you young or you are old? What you're going to say? Young?
No, old.
Old?
Eternal.
You're trying to cheat me. Okay, if I ask Brittany, are you a man or a woman?
A woman.
So these are designations. Are you a worker or a businessman?
I'm not this body.
Okay. But generally,
I'm a businessman.
a businessman. Are you thin or you are fat? Well, some will say, depends. Some will say I'm fat, some will say I'm thin. Are you big or small? Tiny. Yes. So all these are material designations. We think that we are this body, and then we think, okay, I'm a man or I'm a woman, I'm young, I'm old, I'm handsome. We identify with our material body. Not only with our material body, but we also identify with our subtle body, with our mind. So on the basis of this, we think we are what? For example, think. What are our subtle identifications on the basis of our mind? Smart. Or I am dumb. Or I am quick. I'm resourceful. I can always come with nice ideas. What else?
What about creative and destructive?
Also, yes. I'm this, I'm that, but all these things, this is not the soul. The soul enters certain body, subtle body, and gross body, and we accept that we are all these things. I'm very slow. Hey, he's very fast. No, he's not fast. His body is fast. He's as fast as you are, because he's spirit soul and you are spirit soul. But we are identified with all these things. This is called Maya, or material illusion. To think that you are something that you are not. The whole process of spiritual realization is meant to help us to get rid from all these designations and to realize who are we. Sarva Upadi, this is the word in Sanskrit for designation, Upadi. Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam, Muktam, we have to get rid of all this. Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam. And when we get rid of all these false designations that I am this, I am that, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm clever, I'm dull. Hrishikena Hrishikesha. With whatever we have, like good or bad, whatever body we have, whatever mind we have, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam. We have to serve with this body to Hrishikesha, the master of the body, the master of the senses, Krishna. Bhakti Ruchyate, this is called Bhakti devotional service. So first we have to get rid of all these illusions, and then, free from illusion, we just have to try to serve Krishna with love and devotion, and this is called Bhakti, the process of Bhakti Yoga. Yes?
I just want to ask you, will it helpful for us to know we are not our bodies if we will think about reincarnation thing, just because if we have another body in next life, for example, right? So I don't have to be attached exactly to this body. I just consider myself as a what? Did you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that helped me to understand I'm not a body. That is my own experience.
Yes, from this perspective it can be helpful. From other perspective, if we think I'm not this body, but I'm this body, again we are in the same illusion. So both things are required to understand we are not this body and not this mind, and we are what?
Eternal being.
Eternal being, spiritual soul, yes. Both should be there. Like some spiritual schools, they have this idea that yes, I'm not the body, I'm just transmigrating from one body to another, but if you ask them, so what are you, they don't know. And if you know what are you spiritually, it will be very difficult to be engaged in spiritual activities, because if I don't know what am I, what kind of activities I'm going to do. And if we don't have spiritual activities, it will be very difficult to exist on a spiritual platform. Like there are spiritualists who are realizing through their spiritual practice that they are not the body and they are not the mind, and for certain period of time they are situated on this realm of knowledge, but because they don't have alternative of spiritual engagement, sooner or later they should come back to the same illusion. It may be a refined illusion, but again they go back to the same illusion. Let's say before they were the bad guys and they were attacking others, beating others, killing others, and now they are the good guys. I'm helping others. But it's again illusion, because they are trying to help others materially. They are far from the idea that they are spiritual living entities, and everybody else is as well spiritual living entities, and I should help them, but in a spiritual way, by giving them spiritual knowledge, by trying to help them to connect with Krishna, with God. The body changes throughout life, but the self remains the same. We can remember having a child's body. That form is gone now, but the inner self, the observer, remains the same. This very nice example, Srila Prabhupada is giving it, that if we have a pure consciousness and we try to analyze ourselves, we will see how our body is changing all the time. Like if we see our pictures from 5 or 10 or 15 years, our body is totally different. But we perceive ourselves in the same way. Our consciousness for who am I remains the same. But the body is not the same anymore. The scientists are saying that every 7 years. Basically all the cells in the body, they are
Regenerate.
yes. So that means after 7 years our old body is totally gone, and still we are the same person. So this can help us to understand this. Also there is something else. Generally we are saying my body. Okay, if this is my body, then who am I? We don't say I body, we say my body. So this also helps us to understand that there is a difference.
Spirit stays the same.
Spirit stays the same. Now we are going to speak about the spirit. But just before that, let's give a few more interesting arguments. What is the difference between a dead body and a living body? When someone dies, we say, oh, he has gone. Even a child can understand that the person is no longer there. So what means he has gone?
His soul left him.
Yes, he the person itself is not anymore there, but the body is still there in front of us. Like very often I heard this argument, why, let's say someone leaves his body, why people are crying? The same body is there, all the chemicals, everything is there, but why people are crying? Why they are sad?
For themselves.
Well, they are crying because the living entity that was inside in the body and that was making the body alive is gone. That's why. The body is there. If they are just attached to the body, the same body is there. Why they are crying? They're crying because the personality that was in the body left the body. It's gone. That's why. We even say my body. Okay, I spoke about this. People's testimonies about out-of-body experiences and past life memories give us powerful evidence. We know there are many, many such stories. There is, what was the name of this author? Some famous American author. He wrote this book. More than 2,000 cases he is describing. He was actually a psychologist. He was atheist. And he wanted to prove that there is no such thing as out-of-body experience and as reincarnation. But when he started his research, he actually found out so many cases and he published a book. And I remember 1-2 cases like that. Well, one case is about a girl. She maybe like 6, 7 or 8 years old girl, and with her father they went to some other place. That this happening in India, some festival or something like that. So when they came close to this place, and this girl starts saying that she knows this place, and then she got his father and started bringing him in some direction. He said, "Where are you bringing me?" She said, "To my house." And he was like, "What house? Like, what are you talking about?" Then they came to this house and she said, "This is my house." And she entered inside in the house. She said, "Come to see my room." They went to the second floor and she said, "This is my room." And then the man started speaking with the people who are living there, and it came actually that they had a daughter that left her body exactly like 6, 7 years ago, and there was a car accident. A bus crashed her, and on the way to the hospital she left her body. And this girl, she said what was her previous name, and she knew the names of everybody there in the house. So everybody was like, "What?" And there was another case. Some boy, he started having this nightmare again and again and again, and he was going to his parents and telling them, but they wouldn't believe. He was saying that he is a pilot, he is flying with an airplane, and he is fighting against the Japanese guys. And he was saying, every night I have this dream and I'm driving this plane, but they attacked my plane and the plane was crashed, and the last moment I managed to, how you say in English? How you say? Yeah, eject. But then he couldn't make it and he died. And then saying it again and again and again, then the father said, "Okay, like, what is this? Why he's dreaming again and again the same thing?" And he started going back online, looking for old newspapers, the time when there was this war. And then he found out the name of a pilot that was crashed exactly in this way. And he asked his child, "Do you know what's your name?" And he said the name of this guy. And then he saw where this person was living, and he took his boy, and they went in this area. When they came close, the boy, he started saying, "Yeah, I know this place, I know this place, I know this place." So many, 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 many stories like that, which proves that the soul or the living entity is different from the body and goes from one body to different body.
So it's something about earlier about the body dying and the people crying about the body. So who is the person loving when if the spirit is eternal and the body is what they're mourning, the loss of the life that was in the body? Like, isn't the body just a vessel? Like, and
It
the
is.
spirit is eternal, so you shouldn't, not shouldn't, but
Yes, this is the first lesson in Bhagavad Gita, that because the soul is the living entity, the body is just like it's like a car. You buy a car, it can be a cheap car, it can be an expensive car, you use it for some time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then at some point you see the car start getting ruined, and just it's time to get a different car. That's it. But because we are attached to the body and to everything connected with the body, that's why for us this soul is very precious.
that's why we mourn it, because we're attached to the body.
Yes.
It's tangible.
Yes.
What do we love then? Is it the personality? Is it the body?
Well, it's at the moment it's a mix. Because of attachment, we cannot really differentiate between the one and the other. Like we love the spiritual living entity, but we identify the living entity with the body. And that's why we actually love the body. Like, for example, if you have a relationship, let's say, with a lady, and you have very close relationship, you automatically start liking everything connected with her. Yes? Her clothes, her perfume, her car, her dog, everything. It goes like that.
Is that not lust?
That's another topic. We are just giving example to show that because of attachment to the person, we start liking also everything connected with the person. But to be free from illusion means to be able to make difference between these two. The spirit is spirit and matter is matter. These are two different things. Of course, if you are attached to someone, even though you know he is a spirit and let's say he left his body or he has serious problem, of course you have some feelings. That's totally natural. But at the end of the day, we should be able to differentiate between these two things, the spirit and the matter. That's why we have the knowledge of the Vedas to help us in these kind of moments. When the difficult moment comes, to be able to help us to understand, well, actually, no need to be sad, because this person actually now goes to a better place. So he will have a better opportunities to live his life and to enjoy and so on and so on. So why cry? Why be sad? That's the idea.
But it's not forbidden, but we still live in the earth, like if somebody lose a child. So,
Yes, of course.
It's not just like.
It's not
we
just
cannot
like
do
that. I agree.
Right? So,
Yes,
so
it's
that's
natural.
it's our nature.
It's natural to have a feeling when you lose someone who is very close to you.
Yeah.
That's natural.
But we can just kind of modify this.
But the
feelings.
philosophy will help us to go through it in an easy way.
Easier, yeah.
That's the idea. That's the idea of the philosophy. Generally, we don't use philosophy when everything goes well in our life. Generally, we turn to the philosophy when there is some difficulty, because philosophy is helping us to go easier through the difficult moment. Generally, it is like that. Yes.
So, if when the soul leaves the body, it can enter another body, how are they in a better place when they came back to the same place?
Okay, good question. Well, the soul can go in a different places, in a different bodies. We have different bodies. Like, for example, now you're in a human body, and according to the consciousness that you develop, you'll get your next body.
So I'll be back on Earth.
It depends what consciousness you have. Like, the consciousness is everything that you are doing, everything that you are learning, all the associations that you have, all this creates a certain consciousness. And the next body that you will get should be similar to the consciousness that you have. It's like a hand and a glove. Wherever the hand is, such a glove you have to put on the top. So whatever is our consciousness, such a body we will get. And we can get different bodies. We can get a human body if our consciousness is like human beings. But if we have degraded consciousness, we can get a less than a human body. Like it can be again a body which look like human body, but actually you live in some place where your life is very degraded. Basically you think only about like sleep and food and that's it. The body is human, but the consciousness is not human because your consciousness was degraded before that. Or if your consciousness is even more degraded, you may even not get a human body. You can get a body of an animal or a plant because they just exist. They don't have really developed consciousness. But let's say if your body becomes even more developed than a human body, then you can get a better body. For example, a body of a demigod. These are living entities which live on the other planets above Earth, and their standard of living is much higher than our lifestyle. So you can get such a body as well. Or if you develop totally 100% perfect spiritual consciousness, then you won't get any more material body. But you get a body, but not material, a spiritual. What's the difference between material and spiritual body? Well, material body, even if it's the best material body, at some point it will be over. Finito. Finish. End. And the spiritual body, it's eternal. Like you may eat, you may not eat, you may drink, you may not drink, you may sleep, you may not sleep. Nothing will happen to the spiritual body. It will exist forever. Spiritual body and the soul, there is no difference between them. Material body and the soul, there is difference between them. So what kind of body we will get, it depends on the level of our consciousness. And what is our consciousness, it depends how we are living our life now. What are we doing with what kind of people we are associating, what kind of food we are eating, what kind of place we are living, what kind of books we are reading. All these things, they create a certain consciousness.
How we live or how we live?
How we live our life.
How we live.
Yes.
Like the whole from start to finish, not at the end.
Well, the way how we live this life now, it will determine how we are going to leave this body at the end. With what consciousness we are going to leave the body at the end.
There's this very example, if you know King Bharata, when he left his kingdom and he went to the forest, and he's living by himself and just praying and have a living spiritual life, and he was attached to the deer, and deer was too close to him. Then when it was time to die for this king, so his last wishes or whatever, he was thinking about this deer. So in next life he reincarnate in the body of a deer, or just one life a deer. So after all, I don't know how conscious works, so he get back to the human body. So that is things how it works. The more we consciously grows in this life, so probably it's gonna be, it's not better position.
Do you know the story about Bharat Maharaj? Who knows the story?
Which one?
Bharat Maharaj. You want to hear the story fast?
I'm sorry, I have a question before we finish that topic.
You tell me the question. And
Yes. How is the karma related to the incarnation when you get that, when the soul acquired that body?
how is the karma connected with the reincarnation? Okay. Let me tell the story and then I will answer the question. Well, the story is very interesting. That was a very great king, King Bharata. He was basically ruling the whole world at that time. And it's very interesting example because he left his kingdom when he was 24 years old. So he was the emperor of the whole world. He had everything that he has. But he was so serious about his spiritual practice that when he was 24, he said, okay, it's enough for material development, now it's time for spiritual development. He just left everything, the whole kingdom, everything. He went to the forest, he started practicing his spiritual life. He was very, very advanced, because it is said that while he was making his spiritual practice, he was all the time feeling ecstasy, internal bliss, all the time. So that's very high level in spiritual life. It's like the Sanskrit word is bhava. You know bhava? This is almost you are completely perfect in spiritual life. So he was on a very high level. And then one day when he was in the forest, he saw this deer, and the deer was just about to cross a river, and then some tiger or a lion close by, he started roaring very strongly, and then the deer became so frightened that she started running through the river, but she was pregnant, and the small, how you say? It's again deer or doe. Huh? So the small doe just came out in the river, and the mother died. And then Bharata, now he was thinking, well, what to do? I mean, I don't deal anymore with these things, but like he's going to die, so what shall I do? He just went and got it, brought it out, took care of the small doe, and started taking care of it. And then it is said that gradually with his spiritual practice he was becoming so attached to it that externally he was performing his puja, his spiritual rituals, but all the time his mind was there. Oh, what is he doing? If he's okay, maybe some other animal will come and disturb him. So all the time his mind was actually there. And then one day this already like a deer disappeared, and he became so worried internally. What to do now? Where to find this animal? And he started running all over the place in the forest looking for it. He forgot about eating, sleeping, and then while he was completely immersed in thoughts of the deer, he fell down and he died. And then next life he had to become. Why?
That was his last thought.
Yes, because his consciousness was fixed on this thing. So he became a deer, but because he was very elevated spiritually, he was remembering everything from his previous life, which is generally rare. He was remembering very clearly what happened, why he is in this body. He said, okay, I'm not doing this mistake 2 times. That's it, finish. And he went to the ashram of some sages and just sat down and started listening to them. And it is said, from there on the story is very like short for this life. It just said, so somehow or other his life passed like that. Somehow or other he was finding something to it, and he was just staying there and listening from the sages. And then in his next life he was again born as a very great sage, and then after that he went back to the spiritual world. So this story shows how our consciousness determines what will be our next life. And let's answer to his question, and then you remember? So what's the connection between the reincarnation and the karma? Well, it's obvious. Whatever karma we are doing, whatever activities we are doing, it forms our consciousness in a certain way, and then according to this consciousness we'll have to get our next body. So basically what we are doing now is very, very important. There is one famous purport of Srila Prabhupada. He is saying, devotee, he should make sure that 24 hours a day he is remembering Krishna. Why? Because if he is doing this, it's sure that at the end of life he will also remember Krishna. Like sometimes people they are asking, well, if I don't remember Krishna the whole time, or if I'm not conscious about God the whole this time, what is the problem? Spontaneously, suddenly, to remember him at the time of death. What's the problem? Well, there is no problem. It is possible, but the possibility is very small. So if you want to take the risk to get a deer in your next life, no problem, you can do it. But if you don't want to risk, if you want to be sure about the result, then we should have a potent, serious spiritual practice. The more serious, the better. And the less serious, the bigger the chance that we may have to continue with our existence in the material world.